Hi guys, Righteous Rama, Dr. Quinn here, back again with another video. This video is my attempt to answer the question why some people are stuck, why some people can't go forward, why some people can't get from point A to point B, why some people, when they get to point B, they end up sabotaging it and ending back at part A, all right? At point A, rather. So this is my attempt to answer that question. Some people have these problems because they are using outdated maps. They are using outdated maps, okay? Now, think about the traditional, like, paper map or a map you see on your phone screen or your navigation system in your car, your GPS. Those types of maps, they help us get from point A to point B, all right? If you're in Memphis trying to go to Knoxville, follow your map. It'll get you from point A to point B, all right? You're trying to find your way in a college campus, you're trying to find your way through a mall or an amusement park, you use a map, right? Well, the same way we use maps to get us from point A to point B, we use maps to get us from infancy to year 18, all right? We use maps as children to get us from point A to point B, which is from infancy to year 18, all right? Children have maps, okay? Especially children who come from traumatic childhoods, all right? So if you had a pretty healthy, normal childhood with your parents, they were loving, they were mature, they were responsible, they loved you, they were, mentally well, you had a simple childhood. Your map might look something like this. You're born, your parents pretty much guided you all the way to year 18, okay? They guided you the whole way. But if your parents were neglectful or abusive, watch my previous videos to see why I always separate abusive, abuse, abuser. If your parents were abusive, they were not going to help you get a map to get you to year 18, all right? The problem with that is that children are dependent on their parents, all right? Children are dependent on their biological parents, okay? God gives every child a biological mother and a biological father. That's how children come to be. But we know sometimes, in our culture, people like to get it in, if you know what I mean. And so sometimes the woman and man don't really know each other like that. They don't like each other like that. They don't have any commitment or covenant with each other. And so the father may not stay around. The woman may not stay around. All right. So for whatever reason, one reason or the other, the child does not get a healthy, loving biological mother and a healthy biological father in the house at the same time, growing the child up from point A to point B. All right. He may be fortunate to get a good step parent, fortunate to get a good foster parent or an adoptive parent or a good aunt or uncle or grandparent who steps in, takes up the slack and does a great job to get them from point A to point B. But so many children, you all, do not have an adult, a capable guardian who's knowledgeable and mature enough and responsible enough and sober enough and loving and mature enough to get them from point A to point B. Okay, so the child, what happens is the child makes up their own map. The child's like, okay, I know I need to get to year 18, but I don't know how to do that. And mom, can you help me? Mama's knocked out. Mama's passed out drunk. Dad, can you help me? Dad's in jail. Mom, can you help me? Mama's out at the club with her boyfriend. Dad, can you help me? Dad is, hitting on mom, so you don't have people you can depend on to ask, like, hey, I've never been here before. I'm new here. I'm just 3 years old. I'm just 10 years old. I'm just 16 years old. I don't know how to navigate life. So if your parents are not there for you, unfortunately, you were neglected. You were abused. You're a disadvantage, all right? And you had to figure stuff out on your own. And for that, I applaud you. If you did it on your own or with little help or assistance from your parents or an older sibling or an uncle who stepped in or a neighbor who loved you or a coach or a mentor or a youth pastor, I applaud you. You're a survivor. You're strong. You're ingenious. You're creative. Okay, you're brilliant because you survived what some people cannot survive, all right? But you shouldn't have had to do that, okay? Because children are dependent. When people pay their taxes, children are considered dependents, okay? They're dependent on their parents for food, shelter, clothing, medical help, okay? Parents are supposed to protect and provide for their children. But if you didn't get that, you had to make your own way, all right? So I'm going to read some of my notes here, all right? So anyway, like I was saying, you have a map. The map that you use helps you to survive to get from birth to year 18, all right? The issue is that you feel like, well, Misty, Dr. Quinn, my map worked. It got me to, I'm 29 years old right now. My map works. Why should I stop using my map? The issue is that your map was made for a different type of terrain, a different landscape, okay? Your map was made for a different time, okay, for different people. But you're not in that place anymore. You're in a safe place now. But let's go back and talk about how it was growing up, okay? And if you had good, healthy, sober, responsible, loving, obligated to do their job parents, you had a simple task, okay? They pretty much guided you through point A to point B. You had to exist, live, laugh, grow, learn, and be loved. That was simple. You had a lot of struggle. You had to exist, live, laugh, learn, grow, and be loved. But if you had parents who had, chemical dependency or in and out of jail or mental illness, or they were insane, or they were just wicked, abusers or neglectful, or always running in the streets, running with men and out in the club all the night, in the bars all the night, this is how your childhood looked like, okay? This is what your map, this is what your terrain, terrain is like the mountains and the valleys and the creeks and all the different, natural layout of the land. That's the terrain, okay? If you had parents who were neglectful or abusive or incompetent, you had to plan. You was always planning, what I'm gonna eat tonight, how I'm gonna do this, how I'm gonna stay warm when the lights are cut off. You planning, preparing, you cowering in fear when dad gets, drunk, you hide in the closet for dad to get sober or not be passed out. You're manipulating to find ways to get food from your neighbors without being too obvious that you're hungry. You're running away from home when that dad comes into your room at night to do what he should not be doing. You marry young just to get out the house. You hide. You skip school to hide. Maybe you're not getting your clothes washed. You don't have your hygiene. The kids are making fun of you. You grow up fast. You help raise younger siblings. You lie. You steal. You make up excuses for why you didn't do your homework because the lights were out. You couldn't do your homework by night. By in the dark. You didn't have any lights. You gaslight, you avoid people, you feel shame, you hate yourself, etc. That was so unfair. That was so unfair for you, okay? Nobody should grow up like that, child or adult, all right? But I applaud you. I applaud you because you survived, okay? You survived. That means you're brilliant, you're ingenious, you're undefeatable. You survived. You survived from years 0 to 18 with very little assistance from adults, okay? Even though you were very dependent upon them, you and God, and maybe some people, adults who are around or children who are around, helped you get through, okay? But the problem is, you're using a map for a very different time. You had to fight and lie and do crazy stuff in order to survive there. But that's not going to work where you're going. It's not going to work where you are, all right? There's this thing, the 4 F's, freeze, fight, flight, or fawn, okay? Some of you all you know how to do is freeze when you're in fear, when you're in trouble. You fight. You run, flee, flight. You run, or you fawn. You pretend everything's so great so that the person won't hurt you. Oh, you're amazing. You're amazing, Dad. Please don't hit me. Those are your main tools, all right? But you need to learn a new set of tools, okay? You were dependent back then. You needed them back then. You don't need them right now. You're 25. You're 50. You don't need your parents anymore, okay? I mean, you want them emotionally in your heart, but you don't really need them for anything. You can get your own job, pay your own bills, feed yourself, have your own shelter, your own clothing. You can call the police on them if they try to hurt you. You don't need them anymore like that, okay? You want them. I know you want them, but they don't have the abilities. They don't have the skills. They're not there. They may never get there, and don't wait on it, okay? You pray for it, but don't wait on it. So some of you all are using that. You're fighting in adulthood. Adults don't have to fight, unless you're defending yourself. You're lying in adulthood. You lied to your mom so she wouldn't beat you up, but you don't have to do that no more. You don't have to gaslight and manipulate anymore. That's where you were. And if you're saying, well, I still got to do that where I'm at now you need to leave places where you have to use old maps. Back then, you had to stay in her house because you had to be taken care of. You don't have to do that no more. So what you need to do now is find your way out of places and spaces with people that make you have to use those old tools, all right? Those old skills. What you need to be worrying about right now is finding a place where you can exist, live, laugh, learn, grow, and be loved. Those war days are over. You're not in war anymore. You're not in danger anymore. You're not with people like that no more. You don't date people like that no more. You don't hang out with people like that no more. You don't fool with family members like that no more. You're safe now because you're an adult and you're independent and you can leave dangerous terrain. You don't have to be in the wilderness no more. You can be somewhere safe, all right? So thank you all for watching. Get somewhere safe, y'all. Update your maps. Buy my book on Amazon or Kindle. Bye.